Hi guys and welcome to Aisha's Academy. So this time I'll be going through the AQA 2021 assessment materials. So I've done the Edexcel one if you're doing the Edexcel mocks, well Edexcel exam board for your mocks. So check that one out if you're doing Edexcel, but this is for AQA. So let's just jump right into it. So for question 5, it says 5 bracket x plus 3 and then close your bracket and then it says less than 60. So first thing that we're going to do is expand the brackets. So that'll be 5x plus 15 is less than 60. So solving this is the same as when you have the equal sign, it's just got a less than sign instead. So then we're going to take away 15 on both sides. So then that would be 5x is less than 45. And then you're going to divide by 5, and then that would be x is less than 9. Then if we move on to question 10, it says work out the next term of this quadratic sequence. So in order to work out the next term, first things first, we want to work out the difference each time. So it goes from plus 3 to plus 6 to plus 9. So as we can see, it's going up each time by our 9 times tables. So next thing would be plus 12. So now you're going to do 23 plus 12, which will leave you an answer of 35. Then if we move on to question 5, it says solve this. So in order to solve, you're basically working out what the letter is equal to as a numerical value. So the first thing is we're going to expand the brackets. So that will be 12x minus 8, because remember a positive times a negative is a negative, is equal to 2x minus 5. Then you want to collect the x's together, collect the numbers together. So I'm going to move positive 2x over to be minus 2x, and then minus 8 over to be plus 8. So that's going to change into, so 12x minus 2x would be 10x. And then minus 5 plus 8 would be 3. So then x is equal to 3 divided by 10. So you can write as 3 over 10, or you can write as 0.3. Either way, you would get the same answer. Right. So then looking at question 9 now. So question 9 has towns P, Q, and R. And they're connected on these roads. So it's saying that PR is 10 kilometers longer than PQ, QR is twice as long as PR, and this is the total length of the 3 roads is 170 kilometers. And it wants us to work out what the length of PQ is. So the first things first is we want to make equations for each of the statements they've mentioned above. So if I want to make the first one into an equation, it says PR, then it says is, I would say is equivalent to the equal sign. Then it says 10 kilometers longer than PQ. So it's going to be PQ plus 10. Then QR is, so it says QR is twice as long as PR. So QR is equal to 2 times PR. So now if I want to rearrange this to make PR the subject, it would be, for the second one, it would be QR divided by 2 is equal to PR. Now, why have I done that? Because now I know that this is equal to PR and that is equal to PR. I can make them equal to each other. So then that means that PQ plus 10 is equal to QR divided by 2. So now that I have this, I'm going to rearrange this to make QR the subject. So then that would be, so I want to make QR, I want to write QR in terms of PQ. So to do that, I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. So that would be 2 bracket PQ plus 10 is equal to QR. And so that would be 2PQ, if I expanded, plus 20 is equal to QR. So the reason why I've done that is because they all add together to equal 170 kilometers. So PR plus PQ plus QR is equal to 170. So PR in terms of PQ is PQ plus 10. So I'm going to substitute that. PQ would not change. And then QR in terms of PQ is the 2PQ plus 20 equals 170. Now that I've written it all in the form of PQ, it's going to make it easier for me to at least work out what PQ is. So then add all the PQs together. So I've got PQ plus 2PQ, which would be 4PQ. Then I've got 10 plus 20, which is 30. So add that, that's equal to 170. Take away 30 on both sides. So that 4PQ would be equal to 140. Then PQ would be equal to 140 divided by 4, which in your calculator or manually would give you an answer of 35. So then write that here. Okay, and then question 26 says expand and simplify. So the first thing when it comes to these, and you've got a squared around your brackets, you want to expand the squared brackets first, which would be 2x plus 3y bracket 2x plus 3y. So if I expand that, 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3y is 6xy. 3y times 2x is 6xy. 3y times 3y is 9y squared. Add them together, that would give 12xy. So that plus 4x squared plus 9y squared. So now we have that. Now we can multiply it by the single bracket. So I always draw the lines so to help me to not mess anything out. So then x times 4x squared would be 4x cubed. X times 12xy would be 12x squared y. And then that would be 9xy squared. Then for the minus 4, so that will be minus 16x squared. And then minus 48xy minus 36y squared. Okay, so now that I have all of that, that's basically me expanding and simplifying it out. I'm not going to simplify this any further because for me to do that, it would end up me factorizing some of it, which we don't want to factorize because it just strictly said expand and simplify. Okay, so having a look at question 2. So question 2 is basically, it's given us a point P and point Q, and it wants us to work out the midpoint. So all of these, the 1, 5, 3, 4, the 3, 5, and the 6, 8 are different answer options. So the equation for working out the formula for working out the midpoint is your points of x's added together, divided by 2, and your points of y's added together, divided by 2. So if we now apply that, our x's are the 4 and minus 2. So 4 plus minus 2, if you have a plus and minus next to each other, it becomes negative. And then you've got the 9 and the 1 for your y values, so 9 plus 1 over 2. So then that's going to simplify into, so 4 minus 2 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. 9 plus 1 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. Then if we have a look at question 15, so in this case, it says that we've got a line L, we've got the line y equals minus 1, and then it wants, the scales are not drawn this time. This is where they're going to confuse some people. So it says work out the equation of line L. So in terms of working out the equation, we want to first of all to help draw some scales first to help us work out the gradient. So how we can do that is using this equation. So here we can see the gradient is equal to 1. Because remember, it's y equals mx plus c. And if you haven't got a number in front of a letter, that indicates that it's equal to 1. So that's why we know our gradient is 1. So now to apply that principle to this question, what we can do is, remember, working out your gradient, you pick 2 points on your graph. So I'm going to pick that point there and that point there. So the difference between the x's and the difference between the y's. Now, normally to work out gradient, it's your change in y divided by your change in x. So in regards to the big boxes, it's changed by 2 big boxes up and 4 big boxes across. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because if we did 2 divided by 4, we get a half, not 1. And we want our gradient to be equal to 1. So if that's the case, then their scales are going to be slightly different. So in order for that to work, that means that they both need to be equal to 2. Essentially, or they could both be equal to 4. So let's do it where they're both equal to 2. So if it's both equal to 2, then this would just be normal. So then it will be go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one would just be that way. So it's gone up 2 boxes, but then the other way for it to be equal to 2, it would need to be double as much spaces. Sorry, half as much spaces. So what I mean by that is 4 divided by 2 is 2, so then it will be half as much. So then rather than it going up in 1, 2, it would go up double as much. So that would be 1, 2. See the difference? We've got every 2 squares is 1. So now if we work out the gradient, it would be the change in y, which is 2, over the change in x, which is also 2. And then to cross-check that this way is fine in terms of our scales, we need to look at the point where it intersects, because the point where they both intersect is here. So now if I zoom in, based on the scales that I've drawn, this would be 1.5, which means here would be 1.6, and this would be 0.6. And because the equation is y equals x minus 1, so that means that when y is 0.6, x is 1.6 minus 1, and we know 1.6 minus 1 is 0.6. So these scales must be correct. So now that we know that, we can use the scales that we've drawn to help work out the gradient of line L. So remember, it's your change in y over change in x. So I'm going to pick 2 points on line L. So I'll pick that one there and this one here. So the change in the y values has gone down, minus 3. As you can see, it's a negative slope, and then the change in x is 2. So then the gradient for line L is minus 3 over 2. So now I know my gradient. I just need to work out the y-intercept, because remember, the equation of the straight line is y equals mx plus c. So in order to do that, I know that that point 1.6, 0.6 lies on the line L as well. So I'm going to substitute those x and y values into the equation I have so far. So 0.6 would be equal to, so I'm going to write that as minus 1.5 since it's all in decimals. So that'll be minus 1.5 x plus c. So then my x was 1.6, so times 1.6. So if I use my calculator, so minus 1.5 times 1.6 would give me an answer of minus 2.4 plus c, 0.6. So then to work out what c is, I'm going to add 2.4 on both sides. And so that would be 3 is equal to c. So my final formula would be y is equal to minus 1.5x plus 3. Or you could write it as in the fraction format of y is equal to minus 3 over 2 x plus 3. Either way, it's the same answer, and I hope that makes sense. Okay, so moving on to question 8. So question 8 says 8, not H. Question 8 says it wants us to sketch the curve y equals x cubed minus 2. So then it says that you must show the coordinates. So again, I'm just going to quickly draw a table of values. So x and y for when x is minus 2 and minus 1, 0, 1, and 2. So I'm going to substitute these x values into the equation to work out the y's. So when x is minus 2, if I substitute that in, so minus 2 cubed is minus 8, minus 2 should be minus 10, minus 1 cubed should be minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, 0 cubed is 0, so that'll just be minus 2, and then 1 cubed is 1, minus 2 is minus 1, and then 2 cubed is 8, minus 2, which should be 6. So if I roughly sketch those values, that would be roughly down there, about there, about there, about there, and about, I'm going to draw that one up there, so that would be my cross, about there and about there. So roughly this is what our graph would look like. Obviously not drawn to scale, but to be fair, this does look like a bit of a cubic graph. So then the only thing that it wants you to show is the coordinates of the y-intercept, which is here. And the y-intercept is the point where it crosses the y-axis, aka when where it crosses the y-axis. So here it would be 0 minus 2. Okay. And then going on to question 21, it wants us to write it's given us the first 4 terms of the quadratic sequence, and it wants us to work out the nth term. So the first step is you need to work out the difference. So it goes plus 15, plus 19, plus 23. Then the difference between 19, 15, and 23 would be 4 and 4. Divide that by 2. So it'll be 2n squared, because we're dealing with quadratic sequence. So now I've got 2n squared. I'm going to work out what 2n squared is for the first 3 terms of n. So when n is 1, 2n squared would give us an answer of 2. When n is 2, 2n squared would give us an answer of 8. And when n is 3, 2n squared would give us an answer of 18. So then now, comparing it to the original sequence, so the first 3 terms of the original sequence. So to get from 2 to 11, you add 9. To get from 8 to 26, you add 18. And to get from 18 to 45, we add 27. Now, if you look at those numbers, we can see that they constantly go up by plus 9. So then the next part of a quadratic sequence, because a quadratic sequence should be written in this format. So we've worked out the an squared bit. So now for the bn bit, that would tell me that it's 9n. So the number in front of n would be 9. So then now I've got 2n squared plus 9n. So I'm going to work out the first 3 terms of that equation so far. So then when it's equal to 9n, so when n is 1, it would be 2 plus 9, which is 11. When n is 2, it would be 8 plus 18, which is 26. Oh, we're on track, clearly. And then when n is 3, it would be 18 plus 27, which is 45. So because we've already got the numbers in the sequence, we won't have a plus c for this particular question. So the final answer would just be 2n squared plus n. So I'm going to rub out the working outs quickly over here just so you can see the next bit clearly. So it says that the only solution of x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And it says x is equal to 5, and it wants us to work out the values of b and c. So this is all to do with your quadratic formula, specifically the discriminant. So we know if I rewrite quadratic formula, so this part is our discriminant. And we know that if you only have one solution, then therefore the discriminant is equal to 0, which means that our quadratic formula is used to work out our values of x, right? So give us our values of x. Well, if we know that the discriminant is equal to 0, then it would be minus b plus or minus 0 over 2a is going to be equal to 5. So what we can do is we know what our a is because it's just said x squared. So a is just 1. So 2 times 1 would be 2. So then to rearrange this to work out what b is, minus b plus or minus 0 is equal to 10. Anything plus 0 is just really nothing because 0 is equivalent to nothing. So that's equal to 10. So to work out what b is minus 10. So now we know what b is, we can substitute the value of b into the formula for the discriminant to work out what c is. So b is minus 10, so then, and that's equal to 0. So let me just zoom out briefly. So if that's equal to 0, then b squared minus 4ac would also be equal to 0. So we know our value of b is 10. So then that would be 10, well, minus 10. Minus 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times c is equal to 0. Minus 10 squared is 100. So 100 minus 4 times 1, which is 4. So then 4c is equal to 0. Then 4c is equal to 100. So c is equal to 25, as we just divided both sides by 4. So that is how we work out those values. And then on to the last question of this assessment material. So in this scenario, it basically wants us to work out the value of x, and it's given us the area of shape L. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split shape L into 2 shapes I am familiar with, which are 2 rectangles. So in order to work out what this length is now, if I know the whole bit was 9, and then this bit was 3x plus 1, then that bit is just going to be 9 minus 3x plus 1. Okay, so to work out the area of this shape, it would be length times width, which would be 10 times 3x plus 1. And if I expand that bracket, that would leave me with an answer of 30x plus 10. And I need to do the same thing. I'm going to rewrite that so it's neater. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the other bracket. So before I multiply the two lengths and widths, I'm just going to simplify this 9 minus 3x plus 1. So then because remember it's 9 minus the bracket, so 9 minus 1, which would be 8. So 8 minus 3x. Now I'm going to do 8 minus 3x times x. So expand the bracket, which would be 8x minus 3x squared. So because two of these areas of these two shapes have divided apart, because the whole area of shape L is 65, adding these two equations together should be equal to 65. So then 8x minus 3x squared plus 30x plus 10 is equal to 65. Collect the like terms. So 8x plus 30x would be 38x minus 3x squared plus 10 is equal to 65. Then I'm going to take away 10 on, or take away 65 on both sides. So I'm making this equation equal to 0. So 38x minus 3x squared, it would be minus 55. So then now I've got that. I haven't exactly got nice numbers to be factorizing and working out the two brackets. I mean, if you want to, you can. I personally will not. So the other way of working out the values of x is I'm going to use quadratic formula. So I'm going to substitute in. So my value of a is 30, well, is minus 3. My value of b is 38, and my value of c is minus 55. So it would be, it's because the formula, if I write it down here, so to substitute in, it's going to be minus 38 plus and minus square root of 38 squared minus 4 times minus 3 times minus 55 over 2a, so 2 times minus 3, which is minus 6. Put that into my calculator. So if I work out for the plus first, so for minus 38 plus all of that, so if I work out the plus value, and the reason why I'm working out the plus is because with quadratic formula, you always get a positive answer and a negative answer. But because I'm dealing with length, you can't really have a negative length. So that's why I'm using the plus one. So if I put that all into my calculator, I should get an answer of 5 over 3. So then 5 over 3 is my value of x. And I hope that makes sense. So I hope this was useful for your revision, and thanks for watching, guys.